like I said, it's really great to meet you. You're one of my favorite players this season. I was really gunning for you to make it to the end. I'm so sad to have seen you go when you did, but I think you played a great game while you were there. So, to start off with your job, no one on the show found out that you were a Marvel producer. So when did they find out? When did the cast find out that you've made what's probably a lot of their favorite movies?
Yeah, it wasn't until after it was all said and done. And it was funny because I think, I wasn't the only person who wasn't completely honest about their jobs, but I think that was the biggest swing from like, wait, you you went from not having a job to having done all this stuff. And it was cool. Look, it was interesting in the moment, like when Jawan and Rizzo would talk about Marvel stuff, or obviously you saw Jawan and Steven talking about it. Like the amount of times it came up where I was like, oh, I can't say anything, was fun. But I didn't think if I went in there saying my job, my worry was that no one would ever give me $1 million.
Oh yeah, do you think it's because of like, well, he works in Hollywood, he doesn't need the money, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whether or not that's right, I think that was the
Right.
thought is like, why would you give that guy who has money? And honestly, if I was on the other side of it, yeah, that would be a hard decision unless I had a super compelling case. But you get to know people so intimately out there. You're really looking for kind of big and small things to make judgments. And I didn't want people to judge me on a title.
Right. And did you hear anyone talking about movies you worked on specifically? And we were like, oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm
Totally. Like,
sure.
Winter Soldier is my favorite movie. I'm like, yeah, I made that movie. Great. Like, also flattering. That's cool. But it is, part of me does have a little buyer's remorse of going, hey, if I would have led with that, there certainly would have been more connection points with some of my tribe mates because there was clearly a generational divide at the least. So part of me goes, oh, if I would have just been honest, I wonder if there would have been more overlap and maybe I would have had stronger bonds with some people. But you never know.
That is interesting to think of like, yeah, because everyone has seen Marvel movies, right? So that would give you a talking point across generations for sure. And did watching this episode back help you better understand your elimination?
Yes and no. I mean, I had a pretty good sense. I had a pretty good sense of why, and it's interesting. I think we knew that there was a chance Sage and Jawan were going to flip. For a lot of reasons, I think the Shannon vote, as much as they had a unifying story, it didn't 100% pass the smell test, but you sort of, it made you think. But what you didn't see is Sage and I actually had a conversation where she revealed that Shannon had told her that she was sort of not in the core four. And so I knew there was repair to be had there. And I knew if Sage knew that, then Jawan knew, because they just spent a couple days together. But the pitch from our perspective was, hey, Sage and Jawan, stay with us, because then you're kind of guaranteed top six. Whereas if you flip, you're in a collection of 7 people that of which you don't know where you stand. Because we kind of knew, as much as Alex was playing both sides, that he wasn't really with us. But we thought, certainly I thought, from a numbers perspective, it made sense to stay. And so we knew there was a chance we were in trouble. But if we could pass this vote, if we could get through this one vote, the game would be kind of wide open for all of us.
Yeah, and the episode did make it seem like the Shannon story was believable to most people, but it sounds like like you said, it didn't really pass the sniff test. But what made it sound legit?
Well, because even when I was on Uli with Sophie and Christina and Alex, they were talking about how Shannon was sort of talking a lot about religion and stuff that was probably less present in my time with Shannon and Uli. Because I will say, again, I'm pretty aware of how Shannon's been talked about, certainly online, sort of post-show. My interactions with Shannon were awesome. Like that's not really how she presented to me all the time. She was just a genuine kid from Boston who I really dug. And so certainly I at least was like, that doesn't really sound like the person I spent, the first part of the game with. But as I said in the interview, like, certainly the pressure can make you do a lot of things, but It's interesting. I watched it with my wife, and she was like, they could have just said the real story of what she did, which was just trying to vote Joanne off. It didn't need to be as heightened as it was, because it was when they started to heighten it about her wanting to talk to, like, not letting people talk to each other, that I started to go, this doesn't really sound like the person that I knew anyway.
Yeah, I agree that the truth probably would have worked, in that moment. Because,
Yeah.
if they felt closer with Joanne and Shannon was trying to get him out, that was a reason to vote her out,
Cool.
right?
That's right. So
Yeah.
that's why some of the details seem so extreme that you're like, wait, why would she do that? When the truth, I was like, oh, the truth is fair enough,
Yeah, and also the good effective lies, right, have a little bit of truth to them, So
Yes.
I felt like the Shannon thing was that seemed a little outlandish to me, that she just kind of went a little heat crazy or something like that. I'm like, I don't know about that. I just say that she was playing too hard,
Yeah, playing too hard. If Sage had just said, "Hey, she said my name when we were on Hina," I would have been like, "Oh, I get it. Okay." You know what I mean? So that's why I was like, "Oh, this does seem a little big for what was happening."
Still heading into tribal council, though, you guys were pretty confident that it was going to be Steven, right? How confident were you that you would successfully get Steven voted out, and who did you think was on your side outside of your Uli alliance?
The last conversation I had before tribal was with Savannah, and I said it's either me or catching votes tonight, because we all knew they were favorite idols and going to catch any votes, and I thought either Savannah and I would catch 5, because I was pretty sure Alex was going to flip. I did think Sage and Juwan would stick with us, because I just thought the numbers argument was kind of unassailable. I didn't realize how close Sage and Juwan had gotten to Steven. And so part of me wonders, if we hadn't said Steven, if we would have said Christina, if maybe there's a different outcome in there. So I certainly, and you can watch it back, like the first 4 or 5 votes, I was sort of like, yep, I knew these were coming. It was like the Matt vote. I knew I was going to get votes when Matt voted for me too. 5 was a confirmation that Alex wasn't with us, which I knew. 6, I was like, oh, I'm toast now, because I realized they're going to flop together. Sage and Jawan were a pair, and we were quite aware. So there was no version of one of them flipping and the other not. So as soon as I got 6, I was like, well, I mean, obviously I was out of there, but I knew they both had flipped. It was 50-50 me or Savannah. I knew it wouldn't be Sophie. She had such a hard run at Kelly. People weren't looking at her in that way. And I knew it wouldn't be Rizzo, because they were so afraid of that idol. And so I knew it was going to be one of us. And I did not, as much as there was talk about will he play it for other people, I mean, I don't think he was going to. And I do remember a conversation, I think if I remember correctly, where I was like, you shouldn't play it for other people. Like an idol is so valuable to protect yourself, especially at the point in the game where it's either going to break in your favor or not.
Jeff Probst had some really kind words to say about you on last night's episode of the On Fire podcast, and I'd love to get your reaction to them. Have you heard them? Have you heard the podcast?
I haven't heard them, no.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll quote him. He described you as, quote, a home run in his casting notes, and that you could, quote, could win with the right group, which I don't say about everybody. And he said that he hated seeing you get voted out. So how does that make you feel?
I mean, it makes you feel good whenever anybody has anything good to say, No, it's I feel great. Look, I truly have seen this in season 1. I was so excited to be on, and I think he's right. And I, you watch the show and you go, oh, certain people are good and certain people aren't good at this game. And what you realize is it is so contextual. The right group of people can make somebody feel like a really good player or a bad player just by who they're surrounded with and how those other people are playing. And so I thought I got a pretty good draw, but obviously there was a little bit of a generation gap that I was battling that I don't think that I overcame in the right way. But then I go back and think about other players who I thought were bad, and I go, oh, maybe in a different season they could have killed it, because it's like who's on your tribe, what happens, who gels with who. I think sometimes as fans we think it's strategy all the time, and it is some of the time, but you cannot undervalue how much the interpersonal connections and just the reality of like you get on with some people and you don't with others really affects decision making.
Yeah, I kind of see that second tribe swap, or maybe it was the first, where you ended up with no one from Uli as like the negative turning point for you. Do you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Where I didn't have a great lie. I like it's interesting. I was thinking about in watching that episode because both me, MC, and Steven all ended up in very, I would say, hard situations. But I, of the three, had to defend a voting record where I voted two people off of my new tribe mates. Because MC got to go over there and say like, "Hey, what's going on? I'm MC. I want to get to know you." I had to go be like, "Let me explain why two of your colleagues aren't here," and I didn't do a great job because Sophie called me out very, very correctly. I wasn't gonna flip on Uli, and I knew had we not come back in that puzzle, I would not have made it that vote. Like I was out of there so fast, and then it really, I think, changed the perspective of, oh, Nate is so Uli strong. Like we can't try to win him over. I think, again, Sophie from Kelly did still feel like a free ball. Like I think that he and old Hina felt like, well, maybe we can sway her. And they kind of knew that it was going to be harder.
Yeah. And I just got to say, I'm so relieved that there wasn't a 2 elimination in this episode and the first person cut didn't make the jury, because then you got to be on the jury.
Yeah.
I was happy about that. How did it feel to be the first member of the jury?
Good. I mean, look, that's what you want. That's all of us. Almost since you hit the beach, everybody just talks about making the merge in the jury, partially because it's so hard to get on the show and you love the show and you want to be on the show through the end of it. You want to see the end of the movie. And it is really, I really feel for the people who don't get that experience, because it does feel like you got half of the experience. So as upset as I was, and I truly was not happy that I got voted out, at least I was like, oh, but I get to see what happens and sort of participate in the end. It's cold comfort, but it's better than nothing, to be honest.
Yeah, like you want to, if you can't be the winner, you want to help pick the winner.
That's right. And just know, because a lot of my tribesmates who didn't make it that far didn't even know who won for a long time. At least I got to see it. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool to have a front row seat to a thing you love. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And is there anything else that you wish fans could have seen that didn't make it into the final edit of any episode?
I wish they could. I mean, you again, things we know. The challenges take so much longer, and they're so hard. Like they're physically so hard. And you watch, and you're like, that seems pretty easy. What's the big deal? But like we were dying out there. Like I went to the medical tent almost after every challenge except for the water challenge because I was overheating all the time. Other things I wish they'd seen, like during the first tribe swap, the first person who I sought out to try and make bonds with was actually Matt. That's why I was so salty about him targeting me, because I really wanted to work with him, because I was just like, oh, it's somebody from my generation. Like maybe he'll understand. maybe he has kids. And immediately we went hunting for crabs and we're hanging out. And then he went fishing with Jawad, and Jawad came back and said, he was saying your name on the boat. And I was like, bro, we just started. What's going on? But that was funny. But no, look, I felt like what you saw of me is who I am. Like I really did and still do really love and connect with Rizzo and Savannah and Sophie. Like we really had a good connection, and as much as I wish I would have gone further, at least I got that, and that's not nothing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the looks on, your face when you got blindsided was, of course, the shock and disbelief. And then the looks on Savannah's face and Rizzo's face and Sophie's, they were very like, it was the first time your team lost, Yes. So watching the episode, what was your reaction to Savannah's face? Because she was in front of you. You couldn't see, any of their faces. So when you saw that, what were you thinking?
At Tribal, actually, and they don't show it, but both her and Sophie turned to me and go, and Rizzo just pats me and says, sorry, bro. Like it was because we were close. It was an emotion reaction. And because they're all very smart, it was a strategic reaction of because, that's not a great start to a merged tribe, is losing one of your numbers, because we were really solid. So, but, again, it's in the moment, it's really surreal having your torch snuff and having, like, I didn't really know what to do. I sort of was sleepwalking through it. I didn't want to embarrass my wife and kids by being incredibly salty, but it was sad. It's sad. It really is. It's the thing you want and you've worked towards, and to have it go away was hard. But it is what it is. Yeah.
And I can't imagine how hard it must be to like rein yourself in as you're walking out after being eliminated, because like, you're like, I'm on camera. I can't do anything.
Yes. And you don't want to be a poor sport. You're like, boo, I hate you. But you kind of, inside, you're like, I hate these people. But it is, look, I was trying to vote them out. Like I've since seen Steven And he's a great guy. And he's like, hey, man, I feel bad. And I'm like, don't. I voted for you. Like, I would have been like, bye, Steven. So I can't be mad at them. I'm trying to do the same thing.
It's all good TV. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, well, Nate, thanks so much for taking the time. And congrats again on making it as far as you did. I really loved watching you play.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Kelly.